This is an orange. This is a bitter orange. They're very different things. Not only are they different sizes, have different histories, look different, taste different, they're just fundamentally different fruit, but there's a lot of confusion about these here in Nicaragua and in my community. So I'm going to talk today about why you can't get these in Nicaragua. In Latin America and in Spain and in England, the bitter orange or the Seville orange is a very popular part of the diet. If you're from North America, you may have never seen one of these before or ever heard of it outside of getting marmalade, and you wondered why marmalade tastes so little like an orange. That is because it is not made from oranges, it's made from these. This is an orange. Now, in English, orange and sweet orange are synonymous. If you say the word orange with nothing else, it always means sweet orange. That's what orange is in English. This is a bitter orange. It always has to be called a bitter orange because it is not an orange. These are fundamentally two different fruit. This one is actually older, attested at least 400 years, if not 800 years, prior to the modern orange. But of course, they didn't call it an orange back then, especially because it's not orange. Now, I want to preface this discussion. I have done some research online quite a bit over the years because we know that we have to treat these differently. Most importantly, if you have heart medication, this is not an orange. Oranges are safe for people with heart medication. They are chemically neutral to your medicine, at least all normal medicines. Definitely consult a doctor. I'm just telling you what WebMD knows. But bitter oranges carry the same chemical compounds as grapefruit and pomelo because they're more closely related to the pomelo. And so they are dangerous for a lot of people on heart medications because grapefruit and pomelo, because pomelo as the source, has certain chemicals that will interact with your medicine, so you have to be careful of that. People from North America generally assume that things called oranges in all shapes and sizes are going to be safe because their parent fruit, the mandarin, is also safe. So real quick, a little bit of history about fruits in case you've never looked into this because it's actually pretty interesting. There are really only three fruits from which all citrus originally derives. One is the pomelo. It's a pretty big fruit that nobody eats. That's closest to a grapefruit. So it's kind of got the grapefruit influence within the citrus ecosystem. Now, long ago, it was decided that that was not a really great food item. So even though it grows naturally here in Central America, I've never seen anybody eat it. You can, but I've never seen anybody do it. The thing that people eat instead is this derivative of the pomelo. The bitter orange is quite popular and the trees are everywhere. The orangish kind of influence within the citrus family comes from the mandarin. That is one of the original species of citrus fruit. And then the other one, the one from which the entire family derives its name, is the citron. Basically, all citrus fruit are some kind of hybrid combination of two or more of those, or one that's been highly modified over time. So things like lemons and limes and things like that are all derivatives. None of those do we really eat. Mandarins to some degree, but the mandarin that we know today is so heavily modified from the mandarin source that it's even that. It's questionable whether you can refer to it as a source mandarin. And that's one of the reasons that these are so different, is that they branched off of mandarin nearly a millennium apart, and the mandarin had become so modified genetically during that time that at one point it was able to produce this, and at one point it was able to be used to produce this, and then these two diverged, already coming from divergent sources since that time. They also come from different mixes, but they do share a mandarin source, but two very different mandarin sources. It's confusing. Citrus is a confusing thing, but it's nothing compared to apples, but we're not going to go into that. So importantly though, the orange, the thing that North Americans think of as an orange, the thing that you're planning on putting into a cocktail, the thing that you want to make juice out of, the sweet fruit that is going to be delicious in desserts and so many things, is this, and it's very, very hard to find here, to the point that people don't call this a bitter orange here. They just call it an orange. Notice it's not orange. It makes me wonder if people know what orange looks like. However, so this is where I wanted to go back. I did some research, and one thing I'm not 100% sure about is this a true bitter orange? Bitter oranges are well known throughout the world. They come from Southeast Asia, which is where oranges come from as well. Oranges come from, I believe, southern China, and I believe these are slightly farther south, but same general region, right? That's where the mandarin origination fruit, the primary parent of these came from. But these are super popular in Europe. They grow all throughout southern Europe. Nicaragua does not have a climate like southern Europe, nor like the southern US, so it's a little bit weird that either of these would grow naturally here if it's the one that's coming from Europe. But when you look at pictures of bitter oranges from Europe, they look a lot more like this than they do like this. They're big and they're pretty much orange. Not exactly this orange, but pretty close. This never looks like this. It does ripen and change a little bit, but it never looks like this. And I'm going to turn and try to show you guys, because I picked this one off the tree. It is right there. That is our bitter orange tree. And living here, we've always had a bitter orange tree, and we've always had lime trees as well. So bitter oranges and limes, they grow absolutely everywhere here, along with aguacate, avocado. And so it's really easy to have whatever fruits like that you want from our own tree. So these are things, I've been picking these for years. I'm very familiar with the bitter orange. This has a very different flavor profile, but very importantly, doesn't look like what everybody everywhere calls a bitter orange. So I'm very suspicious that this is yet another fruit that no one is identifying, as is often a problem in Nicaragua. The market is so small and the research so little that there are things going on here that are sometimes not researched. And because so many people do not have access to the outside world, people aren't necessarily verifying whether or not this is the same bitter orange that the rest of the world calls a bitter orange. But the evidence says no. Sources online suggest yes, but when they show these from Nicaragua, they look like this. And when they show them from Europe, they look more like this. So something is fishy, even within that designation. I have a suspicion that this is more closely related to the pomelo with a little bit of lime or something. I'm not sure, but I'm suspicious that this is not a true bitter orange. However, even if we're going to assume that it is a true bitter, I just wanted to preface that. We're going to assume this is a true bitter orange. But before we go further, just a reminder that if you want to send in a video of yourself to be on the show, awesome when people do that. Get in the show notes. There's instructions on how to just take a camera, your phone, whatever, film yourself, ask a question, send it in. And also, if you want to support the show, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ScottAlanMiller. And that comes directly to me. And I can use it to buy some sweetened bitter orange juice, which is very popular here. And my daughter, importantly, goes to restaurants all over the country and keeps a ranking of her favorite bitter orange juices throughout the country, because you can't get orange like this. And if you're expecting orange juice to come from this and taste a certain way, it's not going to. It's going to come from this, and it's going to have when they say, do you want sugar in it? You're going to be like, no, orange juice is sweet. No. It's not. Trust me, you want sugar. Okay, so anything you need, any questions, get in the show notes, get in the comments, say hello, give us a thumbs up. All right, so when you're here in the country, it's important to understand, and so many people gave me, because this got mentioned in a video the other day, so many people popped in and are like, Scott, there's oranges everywhere. You can see them. They sell them on the street, blah, blah, blah. They're talking about these, and that's my point. There are so few of these in the country. Now, obviously, I have one, right? So where'd it come from? Went to La Colonia. They only have them once in a while. They're imported. See if I can show it. This is a navel orange, and yeah, product of the United States. You'll never see it, but it does say it right there. These are imported from the United States because they don't grow here. Like lemons, oranges and lemons do not grow in this climate. Miraculously, it's just a little bit too warm, but these and limes grow great. So we have tons of these, and the diet and flavor profile here in the country reflects that. These are very common with barbecue. Like if you're doing outside grilling, these are really, really common on that. They work great with meat. It's a great flavor profile for me, and it's a little bit more acidic, so it's really good for tenderizing as well. You can use it for a lot of things. It's a good fruit. It's just not this fruit. So these can be purchased, but they're in the high cost import for foreigner food sections. Nicaraguans quite literally do not know that this exists and don't know how to order it. They have no idea. They have no words for specifying it because it's so uncommon. It's so impossible to find that they use the word for this to refer to this, as do the people in my channel who say, Scott, we have oranges all over. You can go anywhere in Managua, go to the market. They'll sell you oranges. They will. They'll sell you a thing they call an orange, and it'll be this, and it'll be delicious, and you can eat that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we say there are no oranges here, we mean it. It's so rare that even the people posting in the community are claiming something that isn't an orange, doesn't look, taste, or act like an orange, is an orange. It's amazing how that works. Now, real quick story, because this is funny. My grandparents are from Canton, Ohio, East Canton, Ohio, and growing up, right? I grew up in the 1970s and 1980s. In the United States, we were still pretty isolated from the world from a shipping and food perspective. Like, they're still culturally isolated, and we get that. But when I was a kid, getting things like one of these was unheard of. And I honestly, in the US, don't know how to get one of these today, but I'm sure I could figure it out if I needed to. But a lot of things were very specialty items. If it didn't grow in the US or Mexico, we basically didn't get it. And if it wasn't a flavor profile that Americans like, we definitely didn't get it. Grocery stores had to stock what was popular. We only had maybe half or a third of the fruits that are widely available in the grocery store today. Just getting a pineapple was really hard. I'm still from that era where pineapples were considered outrageously expensive. And my father remembers being a child when these were outrageously expensive because shipping all the way into Ohio from Florida was a big deal. Now, when I was a kid, getting these from Florida was dirt cheap and very easy. So we grew up with oranges and lemons everywhere, and limes were a little bit expensive, but still widely available. But we never used limes, except for, treats like, Mom, can I get a lime? I don't know what it tastes like. Of course, you can have a lime to see what it tastes like. Can we buy these all the time? No, they're expensive and they don't taste that good. Okay, I get it, right? So we had lemons and oranges. That's how life was. So those are the fruits that were common for us. But growing up with grandparents from Ohio, I had never met a person who knew what a mango was. Here we have mango trees. I'm not going to show one, but we have one in the back. They're all over the place, right? As we have cashew trees right in front of me as well. Mangoes are super common here. And today, even in the United States, it sounds crazy that someone wouldn't know what a mango was. But in the late 70s, early 80s, nobody knew what they were. I saw my first mango when I was about 16 or 17, and there was one of them, and everyone gathered around to be like, what does a mango taste like? What does it look like? We had no idea, right? That's how rare they still were when I was a teenager in the 90s. So my grandparents, not knowing what a mango was, lived in a community where everyone wanted to use the word mango. I don't know the exact history of this. And bell peppers don't really have their own word. You can see where we're going. Now, if you look at some pictures, you can sort of imagine a bell pepper that's a little bit yellowy and a mango that's kind of oddly shaped. And I guess in a really blurry picture, after quite a few hits on the underground bootleg alcohol, maybe somebody confused the two. I don't really know. And I guess technically bell peppers are a fruit, like tomatoes are a fruit, but a little bit less so. It's still pretty bad. Yes, they called bell peppers mangoes, and everyone they knew did, and you would go to the store and buy mangoes and eat them like a fruit as if they thought it was a mango. They didn't eat the seeds and stuff, but they would eat them as fruit. When I was a kid, we used to grab bell peppers, and they would call them mangoes 100% of the time. I didn't hear bell pepper until I was at least 13, right? So it happens. It happened in the US. Now today, of course, we know what mangoes are, and everyone's shocked, like, what world did you grow up in? But this is really what it was like. So the same thing is happening here now. There just aren't enough of these for people to understand that it's a different fruit. Same thing with lemons. You go to La Colonia, once in a while, maybe 1 out of 4 trips, we'll see real lemons, yellow lemons brought in from the United States. Because remember, like these, they don't grow here. And like these, they're expensive. Most of the time, that's the only place you're going to find them, and only once in a while. You go to any normal market, they're going to sell limes, but they call them lemons, right? They are limones. And so that is another, both the bitter orange is called an orange and the lime is called a lemon. That's how exotic these are to the market, that they don't see enough American TV to identify that these are a different fruit entirely. And because they can't taste them under normal circumstances, trust me, just like we had this discussion, the average Nicaraguan does not have experience with home air conditioning. They may have passed through a house that had it on once or twice, but they've never had to turn it on, install it, use it, think about it, be aware of it in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, almost every Nicaraguan has experienced what cold air on a hot day feels like. But that's about the extent of it for the average, for the median. When it comes to fruits like this, the median and way above, probably the 80th percentile, has never once in their lives tasted a true orange or a true lemon, and most have no idea that they're missing out on something. So because they don't know that it's different, and because they've never encountered it, they just have no idea. Any recipe, they just substitute these because they're told this is an orange. Just like my grandparents would have put mangoes on sticky rice and used bell peppers and never thought anything was strange. It's just, and then they'd be like, why do people eat this? Because that's not a mango, right? But that's kind of where it is. So that's how extreme it is that you really will find that these are basically not available. But they are two completely different fruit. They do have some shared history, but they arose at different times in slightly different parts of the world, very far apart in time, have different genetic mixes, and have different chemical mixes. Taste, look, feel, act, everything, grow different. They're completely different fruits, but both within the citrus family. Other than both being citrus, there's basically nothing to connect them as both being oranges, which is why in English this is a bitter orange, never anything, or Seville orange, and this is an orange or a sweet orange if you want to really, really differentiate. But if you only say orange, this is the only thing that in English it should be referring to. So that is why we say that oranges and lemons aren't available here. It's not that you can't import it, it's not that you can't find it if it's a thing you really desire, but you're not going to encounter it naturally, and you're not going to be able to discuss it with the locals or even a lot of people on my channel without them being confused, because there's really a lot of lack of identity between different types of fruit. And similarly, like I said, lemons and limes, same thing happens here. They also mix blueberries and cranberries together as the same fruit. If you're coming from North America right now, you're pretty appalled that you would love some blueberry cheesecake. You don't want a cranberry yogurt, right? They're different fruits. They're both small, but they don't look or taste similar. It's pretty weird. Now, if you mixed raspberry and blackberry and said, those are the same thing, I could see why people think they're the same thing. Technically, they're not, but they're pretty similar. But the things that are getting mixed together are pretty different. Like, no one's going to confuse these if you've actually eaten both. So it's a cultural thing to understand, but that is why we say that. So thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. Of course, get down those show notes, leave your comments, ask your questions. It is a really busy week for me, so I'm really happy that the orange thing came up so I could make a video quickly, because I'm doing that project that I talked about in the video yesterday for a few more days. Today is Sunday, and I'm very sequestered still and getting work done, but being productive, happy about that. And I will see all of you tomorrow.